Okay, welcome to another episode of Thoughts and Bolts. I'm your host, Pedro Oliveria. This is part two of the OSAP leaks series. Okay, so if you want to understand the larger context of what we're going to go over tonight, please watch part one. If you're still with me right now, I'm assuming you have. Okay, so we're going to go over the Bigelow Aerospace Advanced Space Studies 10-month report. Okay. And I want to focus on one specific part of it. And that's the part that I think represents the key to understanding the UFO phenomenon. The UFO phenomenon is not a nuts and bolts phenomenon that can be completely understood through biology, chemistry, and physics. No, the UFO phenomenon is a thoughts and bolts phenomenon which will be better understood through the lens of an idealist metaphysics. So, what do I mean by that? So, let's read this interesting account, okay, which is from page 473. At approximately 9:30 p.m. on the evening of July 1st, Robert Bigelow, three military investigators, a Bigelow Aerospace security guard, and the Utah ranch manager were seated or standing on the deck of the command trailer. The Marine was sweeping the area with ITT Generation 3 night vision binoculars when he noticed a bright light just above the ridge that runs on the northern perimeter of the property. The light was large and appeared to be just above the ridgeline. The light was not visible to the Marine as he checked by looking by eye. Upon resuming the view with night vision binoculars, the light was extremely noticeable and bright. As the pair of Gen 3 binoculars were passed to each individual, each reported seeing a large bright object just over the ridge. Upon subsequent conversation, it was discovered that in fact several individuals clearly saw differently shaped bright objects over the ridge. The U.S. Air Force colonel and the ranch manager saw a rectangular bright object. The Bigelow Aerospace um, administrator and the U.S. and military officers saw a perfectly round object. The Marines saw a distinct oval-shaped object, and the security guard saw a large diamond-shaped object. Thus, while all four groups saw a brightly lit large object in the exact location above the ridge, four separate shapes were seen. This finely grained difference in perception by different observers is a strong indication of the need for extremely sharp observation of objects on the ranch in the future. This need will be addressed in the strategic plan. These kinds of perceptual discrepancies may potentially provide an unparalleled research opportunity for consciousness interaction with intelligences slash operators of technology that have a long history of interacting with both people and animals on the Utah property. Okay, I'm going to read that again. These kinds of perceptual discrepancies may potentially provide an unparalleled research opportunity for consciousness interaction with intelligences slash operators of technology. They have a long history of interacting with both people and animals on the Utah ranch. Now, I'm going to remind you that this report was one of the deliverables. Okay, oops. Okay, well, of a $22 million Pentagon UFO program. Okay, that was taking place at Skinwalker Ranch. And as you can see, once again, nobody saw anything unless they had on these ITT Generation 3 night vision binoculars. Okay, when they used them, they did see a large light visible over the ridgeline, but everybody of the six people, okay, two of them saw a rectangular bright object, and the other saw a round object, an oval-shaped object, and a large diamond-shaped object. In other words, there was something there, but they each saw something different. Now, there's one model of the world, one metaphysical framework that I know of which can accommodate this. And it's Schopenhauer's world as will and representation. Something I know I talk about like a broken record on Twitter and on this channel. Okay? There is an objective world outside of us, but we never perceive it through the five senses. The world we perceive through the five senses is a representation, okay, of an underlying, unified, chaotic, extremely complex will. Okay? So, what I think is happening in this case is yes, there is something out there. There is something on the ridgeline, but it's something that nobody could see without those binocular goggles. But when they did see it, they each saw it represented differently, which suggests to me that one of these intelligences slash operators of the technology that has a long history of interacting with both people and animals on the property is able to mess with their representation of the world. Okay. I think this is an anecdotal, example of the world as representation. But in this case, each person or each group of people in this example were representing the world differently. Okay. And whatever intelligence or intelligences are behind the UFO phenomena at Skinwalker Ranch or the UFO phenomena at large are able to manipulate our representation of the world. And why wouldn't they be? Right? After all, telepathy is a thing, and telepathy is the sharing of thoughts. Then why can't people share representations of the world? And why can't those representations be different among different groups of people? And I think that's key to understanding a lot of the weirdness on Skinwalker Ranch. People want to laugh at the reports of bipedal wolves because obviously bipedal wolves are impossible animals, right? That doesn't mean people didn't see them, okay? And just because they saw them, that doesn't mean that's what, in fact, they actually were, okay? And I think this example right here, page 473, is a key example of what we're dealing with the UFO phenomena, in that we won't understand it without adopting a thoughts and bolts approach to this subject. And like I always say, I think Schopenhauer can be our guide here. Okay. That the world of the five senses is a representation of something which is more fundamental and more real than the perception of the world. And that in the case of Skinwalker Ranch and the UFO phenomenon as a whole, we shouldn't take our perceptions as being literally true. any more than we should take our five senses perception of anything as being literally true. What we should do is look at these perceptions as extremely useful symbols which correspond to and represent what is actually there. Okay. And if nothing else, I think that what the phenomena is trying to teach us is that people like Schopenhauer were far closer to the truth than, you know, the materialist metaphysics people out there like Daniel Dennett or Richard Dawkins or Sam Harris or Neil deGrasse Tyson or anyone else. I don't mean to pick on them, but materialism is bogus. And I think that's part of what the UFO phenomenon is trying to show. And if that's true, then the underlying objective reality that we don't perceive through the five senses, um, if Schopenhauer is right, is a unified whole that we all belong to. And that's why I always say, look inward before you look upward, because fundamentally, I think we're all one. So that's it for tonight. Um, yeah, Schopenhauer was right, and I think that uh, the Skinwalker Ranch people, the people in OSAP, may have done more to substantiate um, his metaphysics than they may even realize themselves. Okay, so good night, and like I say, look inward before you look upward.